Good evening and welcome to this edition of KTN Prime. It's the 20th of June 2013, a day when the war against terror gained momentum after police in Wajir impounded a truck containing explosives. Well, my name is Betty Callow. My co-anchor James Smart is currently working on this edition of KTN Live Wire, so he'll be joining us a little bit later. Let's first take a look at our top stories. Timely intervention. Police impound 27 tons of explosive chemicals destined for Somalia. Embakasi residents strip 2 women for dragging a local resident. Deal sealed. Kenyatta National Hospital workers resume work after one-day strike. And on Frontier tonight, the plight of refugees as World Refugee Day is marked. Good evening. Now, administration police in Wajir County have impounded a truck containing 27 tons of bomb-making chemicals on transit to Somalia. The deadly material was sandwiched between contraband sugar and foodstuff in an attempt to conceal them from the police. Well, KTN Samogino reports on that seizure that could have averted deadly terror plots just a day after an explosion at a United Nations base in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, that killed at least 15 people.
A truck linked to a Garissa businessman is the latest suspected conduit of terror materials to the insurgents in Somalia. Assorted chemicals totaling 27 tons and contraband sugar, vehicle tires and foodstuffs making way to replenish the Al-Shabaab stock were impounded just a few kilometers from the Kenya-Somalia border at the Dadajabula Diff Road in Wajir. The lorry suspected to be ferrying the deadly consignment from Mombasa, destined for Somalia. The chemicals in the truck, believed to be used in making bombs and explosives, managed to bypass security checkpoints from Mombasa to Wajir. Bomb experts have taken chemical samples from the lorry for tests at the government chemist in Nairobi. Officials say the seizure operation was coordinated by security apparatus within the border town that has been ravaged by insurgents' attacks and kidnappings. The bomb assembly chemicals seizure comes just a day after suicide bomber exploded himself at a UN base in Somalia's capital Mogadishu, killing at least 15 people. Among those killed is a Kenyan UN aid worker in Somalia. The insurgents have equally threatened to target the country's major buildings as retaliation to Kenya's defense forces' incursion into Somalia. The seizure of the chemicals comes a couple of months after security personnel in Wajir town, acting on a tip-off from the public, recovered over 10 AK-47s, 20 hand grenades and an assorted cache of explosives which were buried at a cemetery in the town. Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
And that story leads us to a big question tonight, and we ask, do you feel more secure with the scaled-up anti-terrorism operations? We'll send your yes or no response with a brief comment to the number 8040, and we'll sample your views during this newscast and give you the poll results at the tail end of this live news bulletin. Moving on to other stories, leaders from across the country and beyond this morning united in prayer as the country held its 11th National Prayer Breakfast. Calls for peace, unity, tolerance and prayers for the country's prosperity dominated the annual event. President Uhuru Kenyatta asked those demanding pay hikes to look at the bigger picture, since their demands have a bearing on other sectors of the economy.
It was President Uhuru Kenyatta's first national prayer breakfast, and memories of the historic events leading to his inauguration were rekindled as Deputy President William Ruto recalled the first visit to State House after the Jubilee pair won the election.
We came outside there when we were having a chat. So this gentleman told us, now you guys, supposing somebody shows up here and says, sorry, gentlemen, there was a small mistake. You are not supposed to be the ones who are supposed to be.
Ruto revealed that the decision to put prayer first was reached way before they knelt in front of a crowd that included heads of state at their inauguration.
I saw the eyes of the Chief of Defense Forces. And he was not amused. And he told me, because we were running there is no way the commander-in-chief is going to kneel down. The soldiers are standing there.
Under the theme, a grateful nation is a great nation, leaders from across the political divide, the corporate world and the diplomatic corps gathered at the Safari Park Hotel for the National Prayer Breakfast.
Heavenly Father, we want to come before your presence this morning.
As we move on with devolution, you will bless us, Lord. Give our leaders wisdom.
Prayer is not a ritual. It's not tradition. It's not formality. Prayer is serious business.
With the country moving to the devolved system of government, the president was seeking divine intervention as the country embraces the new system amid supremacy battles.
I urge leaders not to politicize the challenges facing the implementation of this new order, but instead provide practical solutions.
The prayer breakfast saw the president reach out to those advocating for bigger paychecks.
We must remember that our sectoral demands as counties, as interest groups, as trade unions and so on, have a direct impact on other sectors of our country.
Fresh from a peaceful election and smooth transition, the National Prayer Breakfast provided an opportunity for reflection, thanksgiving and prayer. It is the 11th time that leaders are uniting in prayer, with the National Prayer Breakfast now entrenched in the national calendar. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
From prayers to the ICC cases, and President Uhuru Kenyatta's trial at the International Criminal Court has been moved to November 12th and not the July 9th date earlier set by the court. Well, this follows requests by the president's lawyers to have the trial rescheduled to give them more time to prepare after the prosecution delayed in disclosing evidence to the defense of the president. His lawyers had asked for a date in January 2014 to allow them ample time to prepare his defense. However, in arriving at the decision, ICC judges said that the new date will allow President Kenyatta's defense adequate time to prepare its case, as well as rescheduling and logistical considerations. The judges explained that the trial would have been set for early October, but due to logistical challenges, including availability of courtrooms, the new date was the most favorable. Now, police in Embakasi early this morning rescued 2 women from an angry mob after they had stripped them for allegedly dragging a resident and were plotting to steal from his house. The drama that ensued brought business in that part of Embakasi to a standstill as the naked women were paraded in public. The 2 were later taken to the Embakasi police station. Well, Angel Katusia has the details.
When you're running from the truth, you better run fast, especially if it is a perceived truth. No one knows this better than these 2 women running away from an angry mob that stripped them and wanted to lynch them. It all began when residents of Embakasi noticed the 2 women loading household goods from this house. The neighbors claimed they did not recognize the women, and upon probing realized the owner of the house was still asleep.
From there we just came to the house. We just sat here. We had some... I think we had supper. That is chips and some kakuku over there. That was it. What followed was... me, I wasn't feeling myself because I was a bit tired. Kwa kitanda nikajiwekelea. Kujiwekelea, they took some strong tea. They just took some strong tea. And from there, one came to the bed.
The man later explained that he had picked up the 2 ladies at a club in the CBD for a night of passion. Never mind that he admitted he is married.
There was some commotion. Me, I didn't realize that commotion could be emanating from my house.
Are you married?
I am.
The residents, however, seemed more concerned by his decision to bring home 2 strangers.
When you take 1, 2 more, 1, 2, 3 many, and this is someone you are with, you don't think something of that sort could happen.
Even though the police came to the women's rescue, they waited until the public had given them a literal public dress down and a lesson to be learned by the many others who operate in nightclubs with similar motives.
We were brought without clothes, but niliomba mareso kwa kina mama wakanisaidia. You know, you're still human being even if you are wrong. Yeah.
Wanaume tafadhali, mumeshaona lesson leo na muache kuleta wanawake wa nje kwa manyumba zenu.
Angel Katusia, KTN Prime.
Staying with matters of the heart, and business in Kisumu's Konalegio estate came to a standstill earlier today after rumors spread that a couple who were getting intimate was stalked and discovered by the woman's husband at their residence. However, it turned out the unfaithful wife had spent the evening with another man before her husband came home at 5 a.m. and found the 2 lying in his bed. The ensuing commotion became so intense that officers from Kondele police station had to be called in to break up the fight and left with the 2 men. The aftermath was a crowd gathered around the residence hoping to catch a glimpse of the supposedly stuck couple. Moving on, the 13th International World Refugee Day has been marked across the globe with a call to end conflicts under the theme, "One family torn apart by war is too many." It was time for refugees to reflect on their journey, and for one particular lady, it was a day to remember the reunion with her father after being separated for 22 years. Najma Ismail has that story.
Different refugees who came to Kenya united away from their homeland, but a dark cloud hangs over them, that of an impending repatriation that is causing anxiety amongst them. But the government is giving a reassurance on the way the repatriation will be carried out.
We've had discussions with the international organizations, and I think we have a pretty good idea of where they are at. They've been doing some mappings of the safe areas in Somalia, but they also have information and documentation on where these refugees actually come from.
Mobile phone service provider Safaricom joined in marking the World Refugee Day by launching a free service that is geared towards reuniting refugees' families that have been separated for years.
At present, the way the platform works is people have to register on it, so it's like a tracing tool. So unless the missing person happens to register for it as well, then we'd be able to link up the 2. At the moment, as you can see, even by the title of the product, it's called Refugees United, targeting displaced people. But certainly if there was a missing person who registered and the person looking for them registered, they would be able to find each other.
23-year-old Fadumo is one of the refugees who was separated from her family for 22 years. She is elated to be reunited with her father after such a long time.
Shocked, at the same time I was happy, and because I came to realize that I have a family now. I have 8 siblings with my dad and my stepmother. Before I used to think that I was the only child, I was the only human, like I was the only person from my family.
Currently, the Kenyan and Somali governments, together with other leaders, are preparing to hold talks to finalize the details of the repatriation process. Najma Ismail, KTN Prime.
Now, the Kenyatta National Hospital staff have agreed to resume work after union leaders and the hospital management signed a return-to-work formula. The decision to resume work was arrived at following day-long negotiations between the hospital's management team and officials from the Kenya Union of Domestic Hotels, Educational Institutions and Hospitals Associations who were representing unionizable staff. In the agreement, both sides agreed that there shall be no victimization of workers who participated in the strike. The Health Cabinet Secretary James Macharia shall back the implementation of the Industrial Court Award that workers resume immediately. Now, the over 4,000 hospital workers are demanding 1.3 billion shillings in salary increments and allowances. Moving on, as the curtains came down on the vetting of principal secretaries, members of the House Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations turned against the chairman, Nominees'Veting, after he attempted to block members from questioning the principal secretary nominee for Foreign Affairs, Engineer Karanja Kibisho, on how he was nominated for the position without facing an interview panel at the Public Service Commission. And as Patrick Amimo reports, another nominee, Mutea Iringo, was hard-pressed to explain why he was pushing for amendments of the law to have the Inspector General of Police usurp some key roles and mandate of the National Police Service Commission.
And my question.
Permanent Secretary for Transport Engineer Karanja Kibisho appeared before the House Committee on Defense and Foreign Affairs for vetting after he was nominated Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary. Community lawmaker Dr. Chris Omalwa raised a similarly innocent and harmless question on whether Kibisho applied for the position. The committee's chairman landed in trouble when he attempted to block members from pursuing that line.
Did you apply for this job? If you never applied, then you disqualify yourself.
That question really is inadmissible, and you do not have to answer that.
Chair, this country is democratic. Engineer Kibisho can defend himself. You don't have to protect him.
We either need some housekeeping, or you let us ask the questions.
Let the nominee shed more light, and that will make the process more smooth.
Given the mood of the House, of the floor, we will allow the question. We're in consensus that can be made, but understanding that the application had been made, and I'm in receipt of that information.
I'm getting this question from everyone, and I have a responsibility to clear it.
Engineer Kibisho said he applied for the Principal Secretary job, but was not shortlisted for interviews.
There were 155 names that were published in our local press where my name did not appear. With the experience I have, I thought this was not fair. And I went ahead and did a very comprehensive appeal to Public Service Commission, explaining to them why I feel strongly I should have been shortlisted.
Kibisho also told the committee 2 people had gone to court to block him and internal PS Mutea Iringo from being appointed to the new positions after they failed to be shortlisted by the Public Service Commission. On his part, internal security PS Mutea Iringo found himself in a tight corner after he seemed to support the Inspector General of Police fresh appointments of senior police officers without consulting the National Police Service Commission.
We have delineated clearly the mandate of each of the offices, like the Inspector General and the Chair Police Service Commission.
For the avoidance of doubt, the Commission shall recruit and appoint persons to hold or act in offices in the service, confirm appointments and determine promotions and transfers within the National Police Service.
When you try to apply it right on the ground, it will be a bit difficult. This is a law that is best delegated to the Inspector General, because he's a man who is the commander of the force.
If your interpretation is that the problem is constitutional or legal, and until it is amended, you think nothing will happen, you are taking us back to the old structure of the police, where the Public Service Commission, which was supposed to do the role that the National Police Service is now doing, became a eunuch, and the police went ahead to do whatever they wanted.
He was being vetted for the position of Principal Secretary nominee, Interior and National Coordination. The various House committees will present their report to the National Assembly on Tuesday for members to have a final say on the suitability or otherwise of the 26 principal nominees. Reporting for KTN, I'm Patrick Amimo.
And now to the Thursday series Frontier. And tonight we focus on refugees. Whenever they flee their countries, they come to Kenya hoping for a better life. And even though Kenya is not at war, life in the camps is hard. And sometimes refugees have to make a do with living in squalor. Halima Farah, a 20-year-old Somali refugee living in Dadaab, thought that life would be better and that she would live out her dream of being educated to the highest level. Instead, she was married off to a local. But she has not given up on her dream in the land where culture, not women's rights, reigns supreme. Catherine Omwanto has that story.
Halima is fighting a war, a silent one at that.
So I wanted to start in secondary level. Until college, I like to continue my education.
Refugees are very guarded people. They rarely share details about themselves out of fear that they may get caught by authorities. So Halima's answers are very short and sometimes they seem rehearsed. Her parents and 8 siblings came to Kenya in search of a safe haven, one where children don't carry guns or the sight of death is not so normal.
Some are killing, some are branded, some girls are lobbied. So that is why they are feeling from all Somalis there.
Their search led them to Dadaab refugee camp. Halima says that she does not remember the exact year her family came in, and she only remembers that for the first time in her life there was peace.
When did you start school? 1. Even pre-unity.
Which year?
I can't remember. It was, if I think, it was 2002.
If it was not for the long-standing traditions shared among the Somali communities in Somalia and here in Kenya, Halima would have completed her secondary education by now. But in this part of the world, culture still reigns.
Halima is like she is telling, because she has been telling me, you know, I got married, I finished class 8, I was refused to join secondary school. In fact, that's why I've been asking her, why can't you join this Dadaab? But you see, another thing, when she is a refugee and she joins the secondary school here for local, actually she will be harassed by the local learners. She cannot join here. Let her join the secondary schools in there. That's what they normally join, the secondary school which are in the refugee camps.
Despite her parents' and husband's disapproval of education for girls, Halima has enrolled herself at the Dadaab Vocational Center for a year. This is her escape, a place where she does not have to play wife or obedient daughter, but rather student. So far she has learned some computer skills, and her tailoring is not bad either. Hopefully these courses will give her some earnings once she graduates from the center in December. She also hopes that it will help her get back into the mainstream education system.
If you and she text me and say to me, God, that bless and learn that bless, learn that bless education, I like.
At her age, girls here have at least 2 children. She has not given birth yet, a defiant move, and perhaps her only weapon against tradition. When Halima and girls her age make their way to this vocational center in Dadaab, we're told that there are men who stand right here at the gate, ready to tell them that their place is in the kitchen and not in the classroom.
We keep on working together with the parents so that we can at least enlighten them about education. Because, it's very funny when this woman gets at 40, she's divorced, and now the man gets a young lady. Now this woman, she'll either do something, the business she knows she can do.
The girls here want to learn, they want to empower themselves. They just need some inspiration. Maybe Halima is the inspiration for the girls of Dadaab. Catherine Omwando for The Frontier.
However, as our Western Region reporter Fred Omulo now reports, out of the county, little is there to write home really about cane farming and its benefits to the locals. Take a look.
Migori County is one of the most economically active counties in the southwestern region of Kenya. Its financial muscle primarily derives from the intensive investment in the sugar sector, coupled with its strategic location at the Kenya-Tanzania border. But this hasn't always been the case. Cheap sugar imports in the 1990s and mismanagement at the local powerhouse Sony Sugar, as well as cane poaching, almost crippled this sector.
During those years, cane used to take as long as 6 years in the fields, and so many farmers incurred huge losses. So they came in and they bridged that gap.
In the last 5 years, 2 new millers have joined the fray without conducting intensive cane development, increasing competition for the available crop and taking advantage of Sony Sugar's weaknesses.
We had intended to do an expansion of this factory, and the government had actually promised that we would get funded. This funding did not come true, And therefore we went ahead and expanded Ken because, obviously you have to start with the resource.
Sony Sugar, the oldest player that was once a monopoly in the region, sustains approximately 500,000 residents scattered across 4 counties. Its dismal performance in the 1990s and early 2000s placed it squarely within the privatization sights of the Kibaki administration, but with a current turnover of 7 billion shillings, many stakeholders here are changing their view.
The government wanted to privatize them because they were a burden on the exchequer. So now, given that Sony is able to stand alone, we want to reserve it to the farmers. Let the farmers here own it.
Sukari Industries in Homa Bay County and Transmara Sugar in the neighboring Narok County have joined the fray, opening up new farming areas in places like Ndewa, Nyatike, Kuria East and Kilgoris constituency. Of the 6 counties that make up Nyanza province, Migori holds the greatest promise considering its location and the economic potential that it has. With the onset of devolution, only time will tell what the future holds. From Awendo in Migori County, I am Fredo Mulo.
Thanks, Fred. Now, the 2013-2014 fiscal year budget presented by Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich last Thursday has received varied reactions depending on which side of the fence you sit. It was a budget of many firsts, notably the allocation of 53 billion shillings towards the Standard 1 free laptop project promised in the Jubilee Manifesto. Now, a recent poll by Ipsos Innovate has determined that public opinion was harshest when it came to the proposal to the retabling of the emotive VAT bill. Now, when asked whether they approved the imposition of value-added tax on foodstuff, 86% of respondents said they denied that. Right, and during this his presentation, the Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, you will remember he said that a fully operationalized VAT bill will pump in 10 billion shillings to the country's economy. Right, looking on the question of what was the most popular budgetary proposal, that was the offering of the maternity leave. Now, free maternal health care in the country received an A in the 2013 budget. Out of 10.6 billion shillings allocated to the health sector, 3.1 billion was allocated to free maternity. Now, the poll results suggest that that proposal was well received by Kenyans, with 23% of respondents mentioning it. Now, 75% of all maternal deaths in the country happen at home, with about 70 and 81% of this births taking place in rural areas. Right, on the question of just how much of Kenyans know about this particular budget, awareness of the budget proposal, only 63% of Kenyans are aware that Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich presented the Jubilee government's first budget last week. Now, those who stated they were aware of the speech, 2/3 of them, that is 67%, said they followed it through the media, that is television and radio, and in general, Kenyans did not give it a good approval rating, with only 49% of Kenyans approving of this particular budget. Right. Now you know how Kenyans feel about that particular budget. Now, the country could lose as much as 480 billion shillings of the 2013-2014 financial year budget through government wastage. According to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the government loses as much as 45% of the budget in expenses that could otherwise be cut. Now, from this lavish spending on luxury cars to grants and low-interest loans given to public servants and departments, the government over the years have created a scenario where free money appears to be the clarion call for working for the government. Rigorous procurement laws, as well as the lengthy time it takes to dispose of government assets, has created an avenue for corruption which has yet to be plugged. Now, this is according to ISPAC, costs taxpayers billions of shillings that could otherwise be used in developmental issues.
Alright, it's now time for KTN Sports Today. I am Nicholas Mudimba. World Championships tickets was the focus of the opening day of the National Athletics Championships in Kasarani this morning. Nicholas Chepseba, who has never been to the World Championships, was among those who qualified for the finals in the 1,500 meters. Augustine Choge, who finished 5th in the 2009, also displayed his anger for the slot in the 14th World Championships that starts on August 10th to the 18th in Moscow, Russia.
With most of the athletes having attained qualifying times in various races, those who took part in the National Athletics Championship used it to attain qualifying times for the forthcoming national trials. From field events to the track, it was free for all as each athlete from the 16 Athletics Kenya affiliates tried out their best.
In the 1500 meters, a total of 12 athletes qualified for the finals, among them Nixon Chepseba and Agustin Choge, who both won their heats with the absence of Asbel Kiprop, who opted for 800 meters in order to gauge his speed.
Anakimbia tuone tunapeleka base iende chini. So the reason why wengine wanatekana hivi, nasema wacha nikuje ninyoroshe laini babu angalau wengine wasipate machira.
But normally the young talent always had a chance to upset the top athletes, and it could have been very exciting.
The women's race is expected to be very competitive, with an array of stars having qualified, including Helen Obiri, Mary Kuria, Eileen Jalagat, Mercy Charon and Nancy Chebet Lagat.
I've started this season well, and God willing, I think it will end also well.
Yeah, those ones are looking for speed. They'll opt for shorter, faster races so that they can pick speed. For those ones who feel that they have a problem of endurance, they're likely to go for longer races so that they can be able to pick endurance.
In 5,000 meters, 16 athletes made it to the finals on Friday, where Clement Lagat had the fastest time of the day after he finished his heat in a time of 13 minutes, 33.08 seconds ahead of Leonard Tip-Tip and Isaiah Kiplagat. Today marks the beginning of 3 days of hard-hitting athletics action here at the Mall Sports Center, Kasarani, where, as it was witnessed, some of the athletes opted not to venture in their specialties as a way of giving the upcoming athletes a chance to qualify for the national trials. Victor Ogale, KTN, Nairobi.
Thank you, Victor. To matters rugby now. The return of Wilson Kopondo to the national 15s team is a sure boost that the side that plays Uganda in the return leg match of the Elgon Cup this weekend in Kampala. Kenya narrowly lost 16-17 to the Ugandans during the first leg last Saturday at Kasarani Stadium. Only 3 players were dropped from that list, which started last weekend. And in England, the Kenya Sevens team defeated Wales 25-19 in the World Cup mini tournament tie. An unexpected home defeat from Uganda last week. Kenya will be heading to Kampala for the second round of the Elgon Cup. Uganda were tactical in their away fixture, and coach Jerome Parwota hopes the slight mistake that transpired last Saturday won't be replicated. Last weekend's match saw Uganda use the Kenya's porous wings through the Denyaman Justin Kimono, who was instrumental in Kenya's loss. Missed chances were Kenya's main undoing in the second period of the match. The return of Captain Wilson Kopondo, who was bereaved in the first leg, will boost the team's effort of redeeming itself in Kampala, Uganda, at the Chadondo grounds. 3 inclusions have been made in the squad: Wilson Kopondo, Nakuru RFC's Gibson Weru, and David Ambonya. Anthony Mutai, Samuel Liech, and Leila Seligwa have been dropped from the travelling squad. Kenya needs a 3-point margin win to regain the Elgon Cup from Uganda. Elsewhere, the Kenyan Sevens team put up an impressive display against Wales in a warm-up game in the Sevens mini tournament in Aldershot. Kenya's Colin Sinjera and brother Humphrey Kayange were unstoppable in the front. Wales showed the homeboys some pacey game, but Kenya's defensive game showed more maturity to deny Wales. Tries from Humphrey Kayange, Colin Sinjera and Horace Otieno helped Mike Friday's Chargers beat Wales 25-19. The Kenyan squad will be trimmed after the England camp ahead of the World Cup in Russia next week. And still in Matters Rugby, William Barker has been shortlisted for the IRB's Men's Sevens Player of the Year award. Now moving on, and finally, the National Schools Hockey defending champions Kapkole girls turned the tables on Mombasa Region's hockey bigwigs Matuga girls. Matuga's first game with East Africa reigning champions Karugea girls had ended them in a barren draw, but was starkly gripped in the Kapkole, who had beaten Karugea in the Nationals last year, which Karugea defeated them at the East Africa Championships. Basiwa Cheriot of Kapkole scored twice in the 14th and 18th minutes. Goals that dispatched Matuga 2-0. Karugea's Ivan Bugwa scored from the short corner to soothe the East African champions. In boys handball matches, Kimilili from Zoya beat Katungi from Northern Region 32-25, while Laborate from Nakuru handed Garissa High 37-11. East Africa handball title holder Sibyl Wade Secondary School from Nakuru are not taking part in the Term 2 Air Games.